88.1 KDHX. Good evening once again, everyone. I'm your lady, Edie B, and I'm honored to have inside the KDHX studios with me this evening Mr. Lorenzo Savage, Executive Director of I Am East St. Louis, the foundation, and also with us in spirit, Charmaine Savage. And Charmaine is the publisher and editor-in-chief of I Am East St. Louis. Welcome, Mr. Savage. Are you here with me?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't know if the mic was working, so I'm glad it is. And I hope you don't mind my including Charmaine.
No.
Because I feel that she's here with us. I feel her presence all the time.
Yes.
And now my listeners are going to say, well, what does Mr. Savage have to do with jazz? And he's here because I asked him to come. And East St. Louis is where I learned my jazz. Miles Davis, Leon Thomas, George Hudson from Brooklyn, Illinois, who tried to teach me to play the flutophone back in the day. Leo Cheers with WSIE radio over on the east side. And I Am East St. Louis gives me that feeling of East St. Louis, and the feeling of East St. Louis for me is jazz. So I want to welcome you, Mr. Savage, to R.S.V.P. And I want you to tell us about I Am East St. Louis because I want to know more about it myself, and I want my listeners to know what a great job you're doing over there. So tell us what I Am East St. Louis is.
Thank you, Edie, and it's a pleasure being here with you tonight and enjoying.
Thank you for coming this late at night.
This is not late. This is great. My wife and I moved back home in 2014, and we're so disappointed with a lot of the media portrayal of our city, of East St. Louis. So we wanted to do something that would help combat that negativity. And she spearheaded and started I Am East St. Louis, the magazine, in 2016. We've had it going for 3 years now. And, we like to say it's a real place with real people. And we have champions of all walks of life in our city. And we feel like we're documenting that for the future.
Very good. Now, I didn't tell everybody about your background, so I want you to do that for me. Your wife has a military background,
Yes,
and you
yes.
are an architect. Tell us
Yes,
about
I'm
your
a
wife's
project.
background first.
Well, my wife, we got married in 1989. She joined the Navy after college, and she served 21 years in the Navy and retired as a commander in the Navy. And then after that, she served as a government worker in human resources in San Diego for a couple of years before retiring for good after 23 years. And I went to Hampton University, got my degree in architecture there. And then I moved around with my wife. I got an opportunity to work at a lot of different firms around the country, and it gave me a lot of great experiences. I worked as a project architect on the Casino Queen was one of the projects I worked on here in the St. Louis region. But for the last few months, I've taken a hiatus from that work and been working with our foundation, I Am East St. Louis, the foundation.
Wonderful.
Right now. And we were married for 30 years this year.
Yeah, you know what's so fascinating for me is when people find romance at an early age. I mean, find love, rather.
Yeah.
Everybody finds romance at an early age. But to find love, true love, at such an early age. How old were you guys when you fell in love?
Well, it's a funny story.
Tell us the story. We have time.
We were in high school. I met her in high school in the 10th grade at Lincoln High School. Go Tigers.
In what grade?
The 10th grade.
Okay.
And we were in sociology class together, and she was always talking. She was a chatterbox. And we were always friends in school. We were in all the same classes. She was sharp as a tack. She was number 5 in our class. Graduating class. I was like number 40, but I did okay. But I was always, always trying to put my bid in every time.
So you were fascinated by her at that time.
We were friends, and she was dating someone, I was dating someone differently. But we always had that connection between me and her and a couple other friends. But so after college, I called her up and we started dating again, and. One time I told my friend at Lincoln University, Emory Bean, he's a friend of mine. He was like, I remember that time you said, I'm going to marry that girl. And this is in college.
Did
you
you
a year
really
before.
say that?
Yes,
That's
I did.
amazing. I'm always fascinated by that because I know a few of my friends from East St. Louis who actually fell in love. I remember when they dated in high school. I'm like, God, how do you know that this is the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with when you haven't done anything?
I'm glad we didn't date in high school, though. You know, that was the difference,
Okay.
you know, because, like I said, we got to be friends. I think that was something we were more social friends and got to really get to, learn about each other. And I never really got her out of me. You know, I went to college. She went to college. And
You went to a different college.
I went to Lincoln University. She went to McKendree. She got a degree from McKendree. And then I just gave her a call, you know.
So you've been thinking about her during all of that time. Wonder if she's hooked up with somebody.
Well, I was lucky, you know. She was in that time where she wasn't, and she really wasn't looking for a relationship. She just had a daughter, you know, and she was ready to go into the Navy. She didn't want a relationship.
Wow.
And so I just said, let's just date, you know, and see where it goes, you know. And
And the rest is history, as they say. That's really good. You know, I was wondering how her background and how her career as a Navy officer worked with her IM East St. Louis activities.
Well, you know, in her career, she was a human resources officer. In that field, she was always helping someone else, you know, advance their career. That was her job. And, I mean, up to last year, she had people calling her, you know, 30 years later, you know, Commander Savage, thank you for all you did for me. I'm now getting my PhD, you know, instead of being in the service. You know, she told a couple of people go off in college. But what she did, you know, she was very organized. I mean, that's something that yin and yang, I'm not that organized, and she was always organized. She never really was into media, but she was thrust into it. I think, like you said, we were thrust into it when we felt like we had to combat the negative media, so we had to go that route. And anything that she did, you know, she went in it full bore and did a quality job with it. And, yeah.
So whose dream was it for IM East St. Louis?
Well, you know, I think it was basically her idea for the IM East St. Louis magazine. I was always the one to say, hey, we're going to go back home and we're going to do these things. I've always tried to work to promote development in our city. I've done, you know, plenty of drawings and things like that and hope that they come to fruition one day. But it was both of our dream to come back and give something to the community, and the magazine and the foundation ended up being what that was. And, you know, conveniently she was retired from work, but I think this became her really true passion and calling. You know, she really knew that and to the end.
So you made it work for both of you. You two made it work for both of you.
Oh, yeah.
You combined the things that you love to do
Yes.
into the IM in East St. Louis.
Yes. And Reginald Petty, I have to say, Mr. Petty, him and Edna Patterson Petty, great friends of ours.
I love them.
Yes, and he has always been that person, that ambassador for the city. And what he did was put in us the seed. You know, he wanted Charmaine to help him with his book. Unfortunately, she wasn't a writer. You know, she wasn't a writer or anything. So what she did was, hey, well, we can do the magazine. And he introduced us to all different people, you know, Ambassador McHenry, Dr. Harry Edwards, you know. Mr. Petty gave us those inroads to those people. And we always, you know, are thankful to him for that.
Now, I was always under the impression that she was a writer, and that. So, who wrote the articles to start with?
Well, she did write a few articles, and one thing she did in the military, she did a lot of, you know, presentations to Washington D.C. and those types of things. So she had to put together things like that. But we have a group of writers that have been with us from the get-go. You know, Tim Fox is our editor right now. And I tell you, he came over to our building where we had on 25th Street, and he said in the article it was a cold building, and, you know, no heat. But Charmaine was there, and she was, I'm going to start this magazine.
That's beautiful.
And he's been with us since then, and he runs the magazine for me. we decide on the subject matters. And
So that's what I wanted to ask you. The subject matter, you have written about a lot of East St. Louisans that people don't know anything about or didn't know that those folk were from East St. Louis. So how do you come up with the subject matter? Can people, like just a minute ago, I'm playing some Leon Thomas for you, and you've never heard of Leon Thomas.
I have to
and
say.
he is East St. Louis to the bone. The yodel is something that you don't hear in a lot in jazz, and he is the creator of that. And I don't know if he's the creator of that, but I haven't heard anybody else do that kind of.
His voice is so distinctive.
It's amazing, and he's from East St. Louis,
Yes,
so we need to.
I know we'll never run out of subject matter. That's what I always tell
Absolutely.
people. And we do have people, suggest people to us. Some people suggest themselves, and I appreciate that. And we probably will do a story on them. I'll let them know.
Yeah.
Just keep doing the great work you're doing. And, we have 4 issues that come out in a year. One is sports, and then business professionals, and then you have arts and entertainment, and then you have public servants. So we do all those aspects.
Great.
Of the city.
Great. Outside of your close-knit family and friends, how has the reception been with
the magazine and the foundation? It has been awesome. We have a board that Charmaine and I formed for the foundation. Charlotte Otley is one of our board members, and some of our close friends are also on the board, Dr. Carla Scott. But the reception has been wonderful. We have an annual dinner every year. And Charmaine got to experience, the last year, all the love and support and the people pouring in, just letting her know that this will be something that people will remember you for forever.
Yeah, for those folk out there who have ideas on how to better their community and that have ideas of their own, what is your advice to them? Because in some ways you and Charmaine are like role models for making a change. And is there a formula on how to get started? Or, because I even wrote this after Charmaine passed away, that I felt that she was a song that everybody wanted to sing. It's not easy going into a city like East St. Louis and say, hey, I want to change things, and people start jumping on your bandwagon. It takes a special person to be able to do something like that. What's the formula? What do you say it is?
Well, I think the formula, the denominator is that, you want to have a better city. And however you do that is by you. We profile people that are fashion people. They create new fashion lines, things like that. And they're out there doing their part in promoting the talents that we have from the city. But I just want to encourage people to, come back to the city and give something back to it. We all are so proud of our city, but we've spread it to the ends of the earth, But I like to say we're like Wakandans, that we have all of our gifts are out there in the world, But some of us are coming back.
Yeah, you have to think about that now. You and Charmaine were two very gifted people, and you've done so much in your own careers. You could have gone anywhere and did anything, but you chose to come back to East St. Louis, Illinois.
Oh, yeah. It's our home. All of our both of our families, of course, are here, and I think everybody wants to come home, eventually.
Did you and Charmaine say that even when you were away in your careers? Did you say one day after we were retired and all of that, we're going to go back home?
I used to say it all the time.
Really?
And she would be like, I don't
really?
Want to go back. Yeah.
So you wanted to come home.
I was always the
and
one.
Charmaine did not want to come home.
Well, I would say she loved to come home and visit. We always came home to visit, and eventually we would have come back home maybe at a later time. But when she started having health issues, that's when she retired the second time in 2014, and we were like, okay, now's the time, and I appreciate that we got to start the magazine and the foundation, because it was something that she took with her, that she knows she made a difference in this world. And 100 years from now, when people look up East St. Louis, like when they Google East St. Louis, they'll see her face and they'll see the positive stories that we've done, as opposed to, in addition to the negative things. I think that's the key.
Absolutely. And I just did an article. I interviewed Mr. Stanley Nelson. He did the Miles Davis Birth of the Cool film. And when I wrote the article, I started it off by saying that back in the day when I first left home and went away, and people would ask where I was from, and I would always say, I am from East St. Louis, where Miles is from.
Right.
And what I'm seeing that you're doing, you're starting the I Am East St. Louis magazine, putting in that magazine more people for us to look up to and to admire and say, oh, well, I'm from East St. Louis. That's where so-and-so is from.
And they're not just, like you said, not just popular people, not, people everybody know. We like to do the unsung, too. We did a story on my friend Henry Cotton. He works with the city, and he'd be on the tractor every morning cleaning up all the lots and things. And people who don't get to do, we like to catch those people too. And, the last magazine we had a couple of young ladies that are, one young lady is the coach at R.S.V.P volleyball team. She's a up and comer. So we try to stay contemporary, and bring in the young people, because those are the people that are our future, and they're the ones that we want to come back and complete the work that we've all been trying
absolutely,
to do.
I think, to me, children are the formula to me, because, when you grow up, a lot of people just forget about children, and then they forget about that they were a child at one time. Well, yeah. But if you think about it, what the world needs now is what a child needs to grow. Yes. And if you're thinking about policies and all of that, think in terms of children, what they need for nourishment and all that. It sounds strange. I talk to people about that a lot, but and I can't really verbalize, what I mean exactly. But to me, it's so elemental. If you just think about it, what does kids need?
Yeah, well, one thing they definitely need is dignity, and I think when we look at I Am East St. Louis, just those words give you some power. I am East St. Louis, and these other people were East St. Louis, and they have they've gone on and done great things in spite of their surroundings.
Right.
And so that's a little inspiration. I think like Jesse Jackson said, I am somebody. We needed that in the 70s.
Who was the I Am East St. Louis? Who thought of that?
Charmaine.
Charmaine, of course.
Well, I have to also say we have a friend named Jerian Halls, and she's in Atlanta right now, and she has a magazine called We Are Clayton. It was her first magazine. It was called We Are Clayton. Now her magazine is South Atlantic Magazine. She's so wonderful. Yeah, Charmaine went down there and spent like a month with her, 3 or 4 weeks with her, just shadowing her. And that's one thing Charmaine did. She said she made an idea that she wanted to do this, and then she found someone who was doing it. And Jerian is our graphic artist right now to this day. And she's a high school classmate of ours, too.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Listen, I want to ask you this. You like to paint. I know that. Yes. Paint me a portrait of what I Am East St. Louis looks like tomorrow and all of the other tomorrows.
Well, I think that portrait is going to be powerful, because when you look at the young kids that we are growing now, and the young adults that we have, they're going out in the world again, like I said, and they're making their marks. And our plan is to bring them all back, hopefully one day, and have a great homecoming, and use those talents in our city and bring it to a place where we feel like it will be, somewhere where we can live in harmony,
Okay, I really appreciate you coming and talking with me tonight, and hopefully you can do it again.
Thank you.
One day.
Our Lady, Edie.
Listen, I have a special song for you. I told you once before that this song written by Donny Hathaway is called Sack Full of Dreams. I think you and Charmaine had a sack full of dreams for us all. Like I said, I think Charmaine was a song that everybody wants to sing.
And we both love Donny Hathaway.